Released on February 10th, Hogwarts Legacy would rocket to 12 million copies sold in the first 2 weeks, amassing over 280 million hours played in the same time frame. And big games aren't long attracting speedrunners. Runners set to work trying to break the game, and they've been met with one of the most robust anti-sequence breaking efforts by a developer I've ever seen. In today's video, we'll be looking at the various systems the game has, why they're so hard to break, and the skips runners have managed to find. I hope you enjoy today's video. There are lots of spells for players to discover and use in Hogwarts Legacy, but none are more powerful than this video's sponsor, Raycon. Raycon delivers premium audio at the best price point. You can listen to music or podcasts in comfort without worrying about breaking the bank, because Raycons start at half the price of other premium audio brands. Depending on your audio preferences, Raycons have 3 different sound profiles for you to listen to with pure, balanced, and bass options. And they're incredibly easy to cycle through, as you only need to press the left Raycon for 3 seconds. One of the problems I have with conventional audio equipment is getting it to stay in when I'm running or lifting weights, but Raycon earbuds come with different sized gel tips to maximize comfort by fitting them right to your ear. And you won't have to worry about frequently charging them either, as Raycons have 8 hours of battery life. So if you want to support the channel and are ready to buy something small with a big impact, click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/abyssoft to get 15% off your Raycon purchase. And with that, let's get into the video. With a game this large, there are a lot of systems at play, which means there's plenty of ingredients for speedrunners to experiment with. For simplicity's sake, we'll be looking at spells, bosses, movement abilities, and quest progression. Spells are the gravy of Hogwarts Legacy. They're given out as rewards for quests and help the player as they adventure through the world. They come in 4 varieties: red for damaging spells like Defendo and Incendio, yellow for control spells like Arresto Momentum that function as crowd control, purple for force spells like Accio that push and pull things, and essential spells like Revelio that are required for specific tasks related to progression. Combat was one of the first places where glitches started appearing in casual playthroughs, and runners were quick to explore them for potential exploits. Early in the game, before you have access to a lot of spells, there are a few troll bosses that you need to defeat. These are normally difficult and drawn-out fights as they pack a ton of HP, but with the Leviosa spell, you can end the fight almost instantly. Levioso lets you move enemies and objects around in combat, and if you lift an object into an enemy or boss, it will cause continuous damage while it's in contact with them. And for some enemies, dropping an object on their head will insta-kill them. This likely happens due to the hitboxes of the objects overlapping, and it has been observed to work when using other enemies and even the player's own hitbox. But this method is wildly inconsistent, so until further research is done, walking into a boss to have their HP melt away likely won't be a staple in the speedrun. Later in the game, you get access to the Crucio Curse, which is a powerful spell on its own, but when combined with the Transfigure spell, it becomes more powerful than Abracadabra. First, you'll need to cast Crucio on an enemy, then spread it to other enemies, then use Transfigure on a single enemy while they're being affected by Crucio. Once this is set up, if you use Ancient Magic Throw, every enemy affected by Crucio will die, including the Troll and Spider bosses. Why this works is anyone's guess. The Crucio property could be active on the object and get transferred multiple times to the boss while it's in contact with the transformed enemy. It's not understood, but all that matters is that it does work, and is used for late game bosses once Crucio is obtained. That's all that's been found for spell interactions, and while they are useful, the consistent quick kills don't get unlocked until very late in the run. So let's look at the quest system to see if there have been any major skips found for it. Quests are straightforward in Hogwarts Legacy. For main quests, you're given an objective with the next objective being loaded when you complete the current task. The game teaches you this at the end of the Welcome to Hogwarts quest, then gives you the option of going to the Charms class or Defense Against the Dark Arts. If you choose to go to the Dark Arts class first, it serves to teach you the Levioso spell, and there are 6 objectives you need to complete before the quest will be listed as finished. with the final requirement being to talk to Sebastian after you defeat him in a duel. Due to how it's structured, you can't skip ahead to any of the later objectives as they don't become active until the antecedent requirements are complete. You can't duel Sebastian until you've done the Levioso tutorial, and you can't unlock Sebastian's dialogue to complete the quest until you've defeated him in a duel. This is how they've designed virtually every quest in the game. There's no room for improvisation on the player's part. If the developers want you to do something, it's their way or the highway. But there is a quest that the developers messed up when implementing the requirements, and it takes place right after the Dark Arts quest is finished. In the middle of the first chapter, you'll be asked to meet Professor Weasley in her classroom, with the quest aptly being called Weasley After Class. There isn't much content to the quest. Once you arrive, there are about 4 minutes of cutscenes and dialogue options before the quest ends, and you're tasked with meeting Professor Ronen. Fortunately, due to a developer oversight, you can skip the entirety of this quest, and the method is very straightforward. When it begins, you'll press the button to initiate the cutscene, then open the pause menu and go to the map. Once there, you'll select a location to fast travel to, and when you're loaded in, the quest marker will appear, marking the quest as complete. So what gives? Attempting this exploit on other quests doesn't have the same effect. You simply fast travel, and the quest stays at the level of progression it was at before you loaded. So why is Weasley After Class an exception? There are 2 leading theories as to why. First, this quest doesn't have any tasks for the player to complete like the others do. There aren't any rooms for you to traverse or puzzles to complete. You're only required to initiate dialogue. For this reason, the game may register the cutscene as having been started when the quest was initiated, and due to this, it thinks the cutscene has been watched after you finish a fast travel. A second theory posits that this is the one quest where the developers didn't set the quest triggers up properly and forgot to disable fast travel. Neither theory has been proven, as nobody has poked around in the game's code to see what's going on, but there is an interesting quirk when you skip this quest. Through the course of the dialogue, you're supposed to choose one of 2 relationship characters to travel with you for the next mission, but because you skip the quest, it defaults to Natsai. So there was a failsafe coded into the quest in case you found a way around doing the cutscene dialogue, which seems to suggest the game knows how to handle sequence breaks in case players find a way around the robust railroading systems. For overworld quests, it seems like the developers thought of everything to make sure they're completed as intended. There are dungeons, but we'll get to those in just a bit. For now, I want to look at the main mode of travel in the game's open world. There's likely one iconic item that you're all wondering about, the broom. And it was one of the first things speedrunners tried to break when looking at the game, with some insane results. It was quickly discovered that you can use the broom to clip out of bounds anytime there is a ceiling above you. All you need to do is sit underneath the roof and save and reload 3 times. Each time the game reloads, your character will progressively clip into the floor until you're finally below the map. This lets you fly anywhere in the world, including into rooms you can't access without first unlocking them. But unfortunately, due to how quest progression was implemented, there's not much you can do to sequence break. And currently, there's only one use of this in the run, as a backup strat to grab the headmaster's key early. The next glitch that was found has to do with canceling a specific animation while trying to mount the broom. If you vault over a wall and get onto the broom during the animation, the game will try to perform both of these actions at the same time. If you vault back over the wall another time, the game gets tired of your crap and puts you on the broom while in a falling animation. This may seem like a useless state, but in actuality, you're recognized as being on the broom and off the broom at the same time. We'll call this Schrodinger's broom. Normally, while you're mounted, you can't cast spells or pick things up, but with this glitch, you can do anything you could do unmounted while you're riding the broom. This is currently being routed into the run, as it will likely have some uses, but there's another glitch you can do once you're in this state, and all it requires is to mount the broom a second time. While double brooming, the game will stack the broom speed boost twice, so you can go twice as fast, but there is another piece of tech while in this state. If you get one of the brooms stuck and let the other fly across the map and then dismount, the game will put you halfway into the ground. While in this state, you retain the ability to speed boost while walking, so you can use the Broom's top speed to get around areas like Hogsmeade and Hogwarts, places that don't normally allow broom use. This broom glitch is the normal strat that players use to get the headmaster's key early, and if they fail the execution, then the save and reload backup comes into play. While the glitches for the broom seem to be quite powerful, they're always hindered by the progression system, so at best, they allow for some time save during specific parts of a quest. But we've only looked at the overworld so far. It's time to delve into the dungeons. When it comes to progression inside of dungeons, the developers have taken precautions to make sure you complete the entire sequence the way they intended, but not in an obvious way like on the overworld. To help illustrate this point, let's break down the Helm of Urtkot dungeon. During the main questline, you'll be tasked with retrieving the Helm of Urtkot from a tomb, with some of the obstacles being solving a puzzle to open the first locked door, dropping a crate on the floor to break open a hole, defeating some enemies in combat, and opening the final door by solving another puzzle. The developers take things a step further, however. If for whatever reason, a player doesn't open the two puzzle doors, doesn't break the floor with a crate, and doesn't kill at least one enemy, the game won't let you progress when you pick up the required item at the end. It's as if the developers implemented the checkpoint system from Mario Kart into the dungeons, and you're probably wondering how we know these specific things are required for this quest, and it's because the broom has another glitch. Normally, you can't use a broom while in a dungeon, but if you hold the button to enter the dungeon and immediately mount your broom before the load initiates, the game will load you into the dungeon mounted on the broom. And thanks to the natural holes in the ceiling that let in light, you can fly through them and progress to a later area. Using this glitch, speedrunners were able to determine exactly what the hidden requirements for clearing the dungeon were, and while the Helm of Urtkot quest does have the restrictions mentioned earlier in place, there is still a part of the dungeon that's able to be skipped by using this glitch for a small time save, but the dungeon as a whole remains unbroken. So what about other dungeons? It's currently being investigated, but one big problem runners are encountering is that in some main story dungeons, there is a bizarre gravity that is applied to you while you're on the broom. So if you can enter them with the broom glitch, you can't do anything, as you're constantly pulled to the ground by what appears to be another failsafe. So if the quest system can't be broken, and dungeons are programmed like Mario Kart tracks, is there anything in the game that can be skipped? Thankfully, the answer is yes. There's one quest in the game that's very similar to the Castle Courtyard section in Ocarina of Time, or the entirety of Metal Gear Solid, depending on what console you had growing up. The restricted section has prefects that are on patrol, and you're supposed to use the disillusionment spell to make yourself invisible to sneak around them. But it was discovered that just like the guards in Metal Gear and OOT, the prefects have terrible lines of sight. Using a carefully selected path, it's possible to navigate the entire area while visible without getting caught, and this does come with some added perks. First, it saves time on menuing, as you'd have to equip the invisibility spell over one you already have active. And second, you don't unlock the ability to sprint while invisible until later in the game, so you get some added movement speed by not using the spell and remaining in plain sight. This itself isn't a glitch, more of an exploit due to a developer oversight, which is surprising given how much effort we've seen the devs put into making sure you complete things exactly as they intended. But this isn't the only example of a skip-through oversight. Despite forcing you to complete puzzles inside of dungeons, there are cases where you just have to make the game think you've done the puzzle without engaging with any of the puzzle elements themselves. The high keep, low ceiling box clip is a good example. In this particular section, you can see another room in the tower through a broken wall. What you're supposed to do is walk around to the other side and use Accio to bring a box towards you. But with the self-aim feature, you can use Depulso to push the box to the spot it's supposed to be in. Maybe this was intentional, but given how precise the aiming is, I think it was an oversight. But the next two skips certainly weren't oversights, because they use the only movement glitch in the game, the extended swift jump. A swift dash is the name given to the action that occurs when you roll into a dash. You'll need to unlock the swift talent first for this to work, however. In normal gameplay, this creates an extended dash along the ground, and is used primarily to avoid damage and attacks, but speedrunners found a different application for it. The dash is fine to use on open terrain, But if you try to use it right next to a ledge, the game won't trigger the ability, with the animation never starting. And if you back up from the ledge and try to use it, the animation does start, but the game stops you at the ledge and forces you to stumble. Naturally, speedrunners found a way to bypass the failsafe the developers put in. If you start your dash as you're going over the edge, the system they put in to stop you from dashing off a ledge doesn't trigger, so you can get extra damage when dashing off a cliff, and it does have applications in the speedrun. If we look at Percival Rackham's trial, you come to a room where you're supposed to board a platform and use Accio to pull yourself around to navigate to the other side. The platform itself is placed close enough that you can use an ESJ to reach it from where you enter. Then, with another ESJ, you can reach the next hallway and continue on with the dungeon. In the Charles Rockwood trial quest, you arrive at a room where the floor of the hallway is missing, and you need to figure out how to get across. The intended method is to drop down to the floor below and move a block to the other side of the gap so you can climb up the wall. But it can all be skipped with an ESJ and a special property the glitch grants you. If you jump on the railing of the first platform, you can use an ESJ to cover almost all of the distance to the second. It doesn't get you all of the way there on its own, but luckily, while you're doing an ESJ, the game allows you to jump while in mid-air. It's not certain why you can jump out of an ESJ, and it probably has something to do with the failsafes the developers put in around stopping an ESJ in the first place. Despite their best efforts, the developers did miss a few things for speedrunners to utilize. So the question remains, how broken is this game? If we look at the recent Pokemon games, such as Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet, we see similar attempts to railroad players into completing quests the intended way, with NPCs being non-functional until the prerequisites for the quests are met. Hogwarts Legacy takes it a step further, however, as not only does it include a flag-based progression system, but it also includes a checkpoint system within dungeons to ensure you skip absolutely nothing. This is in stark contrast to Sonic Frontiers, where not only are there plenty of glitches, but ways to trigger the boss fights were seemingly left in case you miss collecting any of the required items to trigger them normally. Not to mention, in later patches, they make it harder for casuals to run into level skips while still leaving a way for speedrunners to trigger them. Due to the added progression checkpoint systems, I'm giving Hogwarts Legacy a wooden kraken for how unbroken the speedrun is. Leave the checkpoint systems for Mario Kart and let the speedrunners have their fun. And if you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe so I can continue to complain about developers making well-polished games. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the credits of my next video by supporting me on Patreon.